Hello, Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about 7 ways to grow from a girl to a classic woman. Moving into adulthood can be really tricky to kind of navigate. And I think a lot of the time we talk about the move from being a child through puberty, but then we don't often talk about the transition from being a girl to being a woman. And that is something that I really wanted to talk about here on my channel because I think that there are some steps that we can take to grow and become more mature. And it doesn't feel as drastic as the change from being a child to being a pubescent girl does, because obviously your body's changing in a lot of ways during that transition. But when you're going from being a girl to becoming a woman, it's a lot more intentional. It's a lot more about your choices and a lot more about paying attention to becoming the woman you want to be. And so I really wanted to talk about 7 ways that we can become more classic and become more mature and grow into the women that we want to be. So I'm really excited to share these with you today, so let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is developing your sense of style. Now, I know I talk about this a lot on my channel, and I know it can seem superficial, but it is not superficial at all. I've always felt like your style has something to do with who you are as a person, and that it really kind of reflects who you are. And I felt like I couldn't say that because people would think that it was superficial for me to care about what I wore, to care about what I put on my body. And I was listening to the podcast, The Simple Sophisticate, which I mentioned in a Scoop episode a week ago or so. And on that episode, she really talked about why it is so important to figure out your sense of style. And it felt like someone had put into words all of the thoughts that I had had for so long. And basically what it comes down to is that there's a difference between fashion and style. Fashion is following the trends. It's seeing what everyone else is wearing and copying them so that you fit in. Whereas style is something that reflects who you are and it reflects your inner personality. So the cool thing about developing your personal sense of style is that in order to do that, you have to know yourself. You have to know what you like. You have to know what you want to present to the world. And it's much more a reflection of who you are. And trying to figure out who you are is the first step in becoming a woman, in becoming a classic woman, is really recognizing what you stand for, who you are, and knowing what makes you happy, what works with who you want to be. And so I really like the idea that our clothing can reflect that. I truly believe that as you get to know yourself and you become more comfortable in who you are, you'll start to gravitate toward the clothing that reflects that for you and shows that you care about yourself and the way that you look. So style isn't superficial at all. It's actually kind of the first step in embracing who you really are because you're putting out to the world what you want people to know about you. So for me, for example, I have really been working on honing my personal style. I only want to own things that really speak to me and that really speak to the way that I want to present myself. Because, right, there are certain pieces of clothing, there are certain trends that I do like, but I wouldn't wear them because that's not actually who I am as a person. And I want to wear things that do reflect who I am. And so, of course, it's always a process, but I have whittled down my closet to the pieces that really do speak to me and that do show what kind of a person I am. So for me, I know that I really like feminine clothing with a masculine twist. Now, that's not all of my clothing, right? Because there's all different kinds of things we can put in our wardrobe. But I really like button-down dresses, for example. I really like wearing a pair of jeans with a flowier top. I like the mixture of masculine and feminine. And the fact that I wear modest clothing reflects what I care about, where I come from, and what I want to express. Now, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, I have a lot of very feminine dresses. I love dresses. And so figuring out which pieces speak to me, not just buying things because someone else has them or because it's on sale, but because when I pick that up, it feels like a reflection of me, has made me feel more mature, funnily enough, because clothing really reflects who you are on the inside and shows that you understand yourself, which is the first step to becoming a more classic woman and moving out of girlhood. Number 2 is engage with your beliefs and really understand them so that you don't feel pressured when somebody else says a different opinion. Knowing what you believe and understanding it is so important to becoming a woman. It's a huge step in becoming more mature. If you don't really know what you believe and you constantly feel like you're on shaky ground, then you can't really become the best version of yourself, because you might feel more defensive when somebody comes to talk to you rather than ready to engage in an open discussion, because you do understand your ideas and you can listen to somebody else's ideas with an open mind, because if they do change your mind, it's because they had good enough arguments to do so, not because you're being peer pressured into it, because you know what you believe so strongly. Knowing what you believe and really educating yourself on the things that you believe will give you a more firm foundation in who you are. So does that mean that you can't have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you? It's actually precisely the opposite. It actually makes the conversations that you have with people who disagree with you even more effective, because you won't feel like you need to shut down the conversation just because you don't know why you believe what you believe. You can be very confident in that conversation. And like I said before, if somebody changes your mind, it's because they had a good enough argument that it was warranted. It's not because you felt peer pressured or you felt confused. It's more that you are educated on your own opinion. So when somebody gives you an opposing opinion, you can really listen and hear it because you actually know what you're talking about. And that is just going to give you a really firm foundation to figure out who you are and to embrace what you believe even more so, because you have actually taken the time to understand what you believe. Knowing who you are starts with what you think, what you believe, not just the kind of person that you are and your personality traits, but also what you are choosing to live out. And so knowing your beliefs, understanding them, is going to give you a really good base for your growth from a girl to a classic woman. The third way to grow from a girl to a woman is to get off social media more than you're on it. Social media is addictive. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that the endless scroll was made to be addictive, so you stay on your phone for longer. But the fact of the matter is, being on Instagram is really hard on young women. And I'm using Instagram as an example because it's very popular among women. We like to follow friends or follow celebrities and see what people in the world are up to. Because again, we are social creatures and we treat Instagram like it's a social outlet when it isn't. The fact is, being on your phone all the time is not something that allows you to mature, because you're feeling that constant pressure from all of these other opinions that may not reflect what you actually believe, and you can't really argue with it because it's just there for you to look at. It's not really something you can engage with. It's really funny because when Jacob and I first got married, I was on Instagram much more often, and it actually was not great for my mental health. I remember that I would look at these women who looked photoshopped and just think to myself, I'll never look like that. And at the time, I wasn't using social media for my job, so I was on it for fun. And it wasn't fun. It was just making me sad. It was a way for me to compare myself to people who I was never going to look like. And Jacob actually asked me at the time, he said, "Are you sure this is making you happy? I think you might be happier if you were to take Instagram off your phone for a little bit." And when I did, I felt so much better. I cannot tell you how important that was for me to just remove the temptation of looking at other people all the time and comparing myself when it's not helping you grow and become a better version of yourself. It's a distraction, really. If you're using it here and there to reach out to friends, kind of follow and see what they're up to, that's a good use of social media, right? Is reaching out to the people that you know and love and being able to see what they're doing in their lives. That's a good thing that we can use social media for. But if you use it whenever you have a free moment, just kind of reach for your phone in that addictive way, it just ends up making you kind of feel bad about yourself. And it's not even fun. You start to think that it's fun because, oh, I'm wasting time on here, but it's not actually fun. At the end of that, do you feel like you did something productive, or do you feel like you did something that made you laugh? Not really. And the thing about being on social media is that it's really not an intentional choice for a lot of us. It's not something where we sit down and think, I'm gonna be on Instagram for 30 minutes and I'm intentionally taking this time to scroll. Most of the time you pick up your phone without even thinking and you start scrolling. And being intentional is one of the huge parts of becoming a woman and maturing. And that's something I'm gonna be talking about a little bit later, but social media is not intentional. And a lot of the time it's just going to distract you from what you really wanna be doing. Number 4 is try to embrace being calm and collected and accept what you can't control. As a younger woman, I feel like I was a lot more harried than I am now. Of course, it kind of comes and goes depending on what's going on in your life, but I felt like I had control over not just my own choices, but over the choices of other people and the world itself. I felt like I had control over more than I did, and so when things didn't turn out my way, I would get frustrated and I would feel really anxious, and I didn't feel calm. But once you accept what you can't control, everything starts to feel a little bit more calm because you only have control over your own reactions and over your actions. Those two things are all that you can control. You can control how you react to things, and you can also control just your own choices overall. Part of growing up is recognizing that life isn't always easy, but that doesn't mean that it's not lovely. I like the word lovely because I do. I think that life is lovely. It's not always easy. It's not always happy, but it is lovely in all of its forms. And I think that being a mature, classic woman is being able to accept all the ups and downs that are a part of life. Once you realize that pretty much everything is small stuff, being able to differentiate between what's a really big problem and what's a small problem, once you kind of differentiate between those two things and realize that many things in life are mostly the small things, that's when you can be more calm, and that's when you can really start to live life in the present, which is a very mature thing. Now, that's not to say that you don't make choices for the future. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is that when you're enjoying something in the present, you're not thinking 5 minutes into the future about how you're not going to be enjoying it anymore. You're there, you're living the joyful moment and accepting that, okay, it may not last forever, but that is part of it. That's just part of life. And the thing about being more calm and collected is that you'll be more effective as a woman when you are calm, because you can't get things done as well when you are anxious or worried or stressed, because your brain feels cluttered with that emotion. Instead of saying, this is a stressful situation, but I don't have to be stressed, because if I'm stressed, then the stressful situation goes from, okay, the situation itself is stressful, to me being stressed and not really being able to handle it. And the thing about being a mature, calm woman is that you become the kind of woman that people can depend on and rely on and go to for advice. And when you're a wife and a mother, people do depend and rely on you. And if you are really stressed and high-strung and anxious, if you can't calm down in the moments when it really counts, people are going to have to take care of you instead of you being able to take care of other people. It's always important to take time just every so often, periodically, to step back from everything that's going on and check in with yourself and really see, okay, how can I improve? How can I be better? How can I be calmer in these situations and not let the stressors of life feel like they're never ending and that you can't overcome your own reaction to them? And just being able to sit down and really ponder, how can you grow and become more intentional and deliberate with the way that you respond to things will be a huge part of becoming a classic and mature woman. Number 5 is to take responsibility for your actions. Don't blame anyone else for the way that you act. When you're young, it's so easy to blame everybody else for the way that you act. Usually, it's your parents who are the prime target because you can point to something that they did growing up that makes you respond a certain way now. But you can even blame your siblings or your friends or anyone else except yourself when you do something that you're not proud of. It's easier not to take responsibility when you're young because then you don't have to face the fact that you might have to make a change. But once you start taking responsibility for your actions, then you can really start to become more classic. You can start to grow and change and improve because you're ready to grow, because you're ready to face the fact that you may have made mistakes, and that's okay because now you're going to learn from them. And it's so exciting to think that you're on a never-ending journey of self-improvement for not only yourself, but for your partner, for God, for your community, for your friends. And it's so great to be able to ask more of yourself, to take responsibility for the way that you react, because it can only lead to your happiness, because it'll improve the relationships between you and other people. If you're constantly blaming somebody else for the way that you act now, then you're not going to have great relationships because people are going to get frustrated with you because you're not implementing changes to the way that you treat them. And if you are trying to grow and if you are trying to be better, then all of a sudden the relationships with the people around you are going to be better because the communication is going to be easier. And people are going to see that you really are trying not to react in that maybe negative way that you used to. And taking responsibility for your actions is also part of taking control of your actions and reactions. And once you do that, you can really become more mature because you are taking responsibility for who you are. Number 6 is be cleanly. Taking care of your items and your home is so important to being a mature and classic woman. Everyone always says that a cluttered house is a cluttered mind, but I can tell you that is definitely true for me. So keeping your house clean is part of your growth as a person, because if you can't have the mental brain space to even address growing as a person because everything is just a mess all the time and your mind is also cluttered, then you won't be able to take the time to become more mature and to take that, little break and step back from everything around you and just think, because you're constantly going to be looking at mess. And on the other side of things, taking care of your items, it shows that you're mature because you actually care about the meaning of a dollar. You aren't wasting your items by not taking care of them and assuming that you can easily replace them. You are taking care of your purchases. Being clean also means that you are aware of how important your environment is. And that is a very mature recognition, is being able to say, okay, there are certain things in my space that don't work for me. The house is a mess and it's making me feel stressed. Recognizing that all of these things play a part into your mental health, into your mental growth, into your maturity journey is a part of growing up and being more of a classic woman, because you are taking into account what is around you and you can have the kind of home that you've always dreamed of when you do keep it clean, when you do recognize the importance of your environment. There are 2 things about being messy, and basically, if you are messy, it either means that you expect somebody else to take care of the mess, which is a juvenile way to look at it. It's a girl way to look at it rather than a woman's way of looking at things. Or you don't really care or notice, but you're not being sensitive to the people around you who might care and notice. And so being clean is only going to be a positive reflection on you and is going to be a reflection of your maturity. My 7th and last piece of advice is to figure out what your mission is and then always keep it at the forefront of your mind. As you're maturing into a woman, you're going to start figuring out what it is that you want to contribute to the world and how you want to live your life. Everyone has a different mission and a different view of what they would like to do and contribute to the world or just to their communities. There are women who feel that they want to just be stay-at-home moms and they really want to invest that time into their families, into their children, into their husband's well-being, and that is amazing. And once they figure that out, that is their mission. They know what they want and they can live their life fully with that as their goal. And then there are the women who feel that they have a mission that is outside of the home, as well as having a family that they really want to pursue. We can see that with the women of the RNC, like I just recently mentioned. Women like Nikki Haley or Elise Stefanik, they felt that they had a mission for the good of America. And so they are out there fighting for that. And that is part of their mission. And so as mature women, they can really invest their time into being intentional with that mission and knowing that this is how they're going to structure their life so that they can accomplish it. It's so important to live out your God-given mission with courage and faith. When you have a mission, everything is in service of that, and it will make growing, changing, and improving all part of the journey. Once you know what you want and who you are, you can live out the best version of you. You can change for the better, grow for the better, and really fight for what matters to you and to the people in your life who you love and care about. And that to me is reaching your potential as a classic woman, is living out your mission, knowing who you are deep down, and really expressing that with the intentionality of a mature woman. So those were my 7 ways to grow from a girl to a classic woman. Let me know in the comments if you have any other recommendations for the women in our classic crew who are young women and who want to mature. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there. Hit that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. Hit that like button. Please head over to classicallyabby.locals.com if you'd like to support my channel, see more of this content, and be part of our community. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!